Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Pañcajana Vallabha Girivardhari. Pañcajana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Prajajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Prajajana Ranjana. Yamunatira Vanachari. Yamunatira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Prabhāsa-kṣetra Asturtar Srimad HG Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON Founder Charya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Prabhāsa-kṣetra Asturtar Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopana Shamakun Radha Kun Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Shri Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Ki Jai. Yamuna Mai Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Tulasi Devi Ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Jai, Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai, Granthara Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Gaur Premanande. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna. So today we'll be reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 5th canto, Chapter 20, text 42, which is a prologue. So I'll just try to chant it. Yontar visar rav itena he akho aloka parimanam chavyakthyatam yad bahir loka loka chalat tata parastad yogeshvar gatim vishadam udaharanti. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. My dear king, outside Loka mountain is a tract of land known as Aloka Varsha, which extends for the same breadth as the area within the mountain. In other words, 125 million yojanas, or 1 billion miles. Beyond Aloka Varsha is a destination of those who aspire for liberation from the material world. It is beyond the jurisdiction of the material modes of nature, and therefore is completely pure. Lord Krishna took Arjuna through this place to bring back the sons of the Brahmin. Text 43. Anda Madhyagata Suryo Dvava Bhumyor Yad Antaram Suryanda Gola Yor Madhye Kotya Suya Panchavim Shatai Anda Madhyagata Suryo Dyav Abu Myor Yad Antaram Suryanda Golar Yor Amadye Kotyasyo Panchavim Shati. Anda Madhyagata Suryo Vavabu Mayuryantaram Suryanda Galorir Mavde Anda Madhyagata Suryo Suryanda Golarir Madhye Kotya Shupancha Vimshati Madhyagata Suryo Kotya Shupancha Vimshati. You want to try, Saul? Anda Madhyagata Suryo Avamum Yuryat Antaram Suryanda Gola Yurmadye Kotyashu Panchavimshati. Anyone, or Mataji, would you like to try? No. Anyone from Jum?
Anda Madhyagata Suryo
Anda Madhyagata Suryo
Dav Abhumar Yad Antaram
Vavabhum Yuryat Antaram
Suryanda Golar Madhya
Suryanda Gola Yurmadye
Katyasya Panchavimshati.
Kotyashe Vanchamshi.
Can I try? Hare
Yes.
Krishna, Prabhu.
Yes, go ahead, Mataji.
Okay. Anga Madhyagataha Suryo
Anda Madhyagata Suryo
Tava Bhumyo Yadantaram
Dvavabhyum Yuryati Antaram
Suryanganto Galo Madhye
Suryanda Galori Madhye
Kotyahasyu Pajyavishyati.
Kotyashu Panchavimshati. Synonyms. Anda Madhyagataha, situated in the center of the universe. Suryaha, the sun globe. Dvav Abu Myo, The two planetary systems, Burloka and Bhuvarloka. Yat, which, Antaram, in between, Surya, of the sun, Andagoloyo, and the globe of the universe, Madhye, in the middle, Kotyaha, groups of 10 million, Syuhu are Pañcavimshatihi 25. Translation. The sun is situated vertically in the middle of the universe, in the area between Burloka and Bhuvarloka, which is called Antariksha, outer space. The distance between the sun and the circumference of the universe is 25 koti yojanas, 2 billion miles. Purport. The word koti means 10 million, and a yojana is 8 miles. The diameter of the universe is 50 koti yojanas, or 4 billion miles. Therefore, since the sun is in the middle of the universe, the distance between the sun and the edge of the universe is calculated to be 25 koti yojanas, or 2 billion miles. I'll read one more. The sun god is also known as Vairaja, the total material body for all living entities. Because he entered this dual egg of the universe at the time of creation, he is also called Martanda. He is also known as Hiranyagarbha because he received his material body from Hiranyagarbha, or Lord Brahma. Purport. The post of Lord Brahma is meant for very highly elevated, spiritually advanced living beings. When such living beings are unavailable, Lord Vishnu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, expands himself as Lord Brahma. This takes place very rarely. Consequently, there are two kinds of Brahmas. Sometimes Brahma is an ordinary living entity, and at other times Brahma is a Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Brahma spoken of here is an ordinary living being. Whether Brahma is a Supreme Personality of Godhead or an ordinary living being, he is known as Vairaja Brahma and Hiranyagarbha Brahma. Therefore, the sun god is also accepted as Vairaja Brahma. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manu Vishnam Stabitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadam Mayam Dadati Swapanandikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaisnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamsha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostite Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshware Vrishabhanu Sutta Devi Pranamami Hare Priya Vancha Kalpataribhyascha Kripasundibhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnabhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangam Langaiti Girim Yat Kripa Tamham Vinde Vaham Vande Shri Gurum Tina Taranam. Hare Krishna. So as most of you know, Maharaj, Bhakti Dimitri and myself, we went to Las Vegas. And it was an interesting trip because, you know, Las Vegas, it has another nickname. What is that nickname? Sin City. And you can see that there's gambling, there's, you know, what Srila Prabhupada says, naked dance shows. There's all these different restaurants that you can indulge in. So many different things. So Las Vegas, it's a very hot, it's a desert, it's a very hot place. And Maharaj, he says, if it wasn't for air conditioning and water being imported or transported from different places, no one would be living there. It was already it was 3 o'clock in the morning. That's for sure. Yeah. Yeah. It was 3 o'clock in the morning when we started chanting japa, and it was already around 92 degrees in the morning, 92 degrees. And so throughout the day, it became very, very hot. And when we went to distribute books, the car, it said it was 119 degrees in the car. And Maharaj's steering wheel was starting to melt. So that place is it's a place of austerity. And Srila Prabhupada, he says, preaching can be a difficult, thankless task, but a preacher must follow the orders of the Supreme Lord and be unafraid of materialistic persons. Indeed, a preacher must face many impediments. Not only is he sometimes cursed, but sometimes he must also suffer personal injury. So we were at... You can't find parking at the Strip. It's basically impossible in Las Vegas. So you have to look for malls and parking spaces. So we parked next to, I think it was Macy's. And there was a mall. So we tried distributing books at the mall first. It was very nice because, it had air conditioning. There was a lot of people. So we set up shop at this one near the escalators, People would come up, people would go down. So we were approaching different people, Bhakti, Dimitri, and myself, and we met a lot of nice people there. A lot of people were visiting from different places, and I was very surprised that people were willing to take books. They wanted to know more about, what the mind is, meditation, how to calm the senses, and how to be more peaceful. And so after a while, like always, the devotees would get kicked out. I have a picture of Dimitri. He's been escorted by a security guard, Yeah. And so we were setting up, or we started distributing books outside of the entrance of the mall. And we had a lot of no's, it wasn't a surprise. And we had to really control our mind and where our eyes looked, because if you look to the left, oh, that's my immediately. And then to the right, there's people smoking. So it's not a place for living for a devotee, actually. And so when we were distributing books, we saw this bridge and we saw a lot of foot traffic there. So we took the escalator and we went up there. And we were distributing books. And then again, the security guard, they told us we couldn't distribute in front of the malls. So we had to distribute just at the bridges. And what was interesting is that I had two nice conversations with someone. This Mataji, it was a couple, I stopped them. They were from Long Beach, California. So I told them, hey, we're from San Diego, we're neighbors. So I was presenting the books to them. I was explaining the Bhagavad Gita, SSR, and small books, The Perfection of Yoga. And she said something to me that was really inspiring. She said, the Bhagavad Gita? And I said, yeah, have you heard of this? And she said, I've always wanted to read it. And I said, how did you hear about it? And she said, everywhere they're recommending to read the Bhagavad Gita. So I told her, it's your lucky day. You take this book and you read it. And they gave a donation. And on their way, when they were leaving, I saw the girl. She was looking at the books and she was pointing at the picture. She was showing her boyfriend, whatever. And then a few minutes later, I met this two people. They didn't look. They were from India. I thought they were Hispanic. So I told them, hey, amigo. I said, do you speak Spanish? And they said, no. And I said, oh, you speak English? I said, yeah. So, and then I showed them the Bhagavad Gita. And one of them said, Bhagavad Gita? And he said, we're from India. I said, you're from India? So I was surprised because they didn't look like, Indians. And then one of his friends, he said, are you ISKCON? And I said, yeah, my friend and I were devotees of ISKCON. And so immediately they took out Lakshmi and they gave a donation. And they said, is there a temple near here? And Dimitri and I, we started bringing these cards for Govinda's, the restaurant for the temple. And I told me, that's not too far from here. Go take darshan. You can take prasadam, And so they were very thankful. They got a Bhagavad Gita, they gave a donation, and they were able to see the temple. And the reason why I'm talking about this is because at Balboa Park, you get different responses when you try to distribute a book to a person. And this Mataji, she said, "No thanks, I won't read your books." And I kind of laughed and I said, "Why won't you read these books?" And she said, "I'm not interested." So then it made me realize, if people are not interested in self-realization, then they are interested in self-ignorance. They don't care to understand who they are, what the purpose of life is, who is God, what happens at the time of death. These are very important questions, and a lot of people, they're not interested in it. And Srila Prabhupada, you know, what does age of Kali mean? Quarrel and hypocrisy. But Srila Prabhupada, in a purport, he says, age of Kali means the age of forgetting God. So it's interesting. They're not interested in spiritual literature, but what are they interested in? Can people tell me how people waste time in Kali Yuga? Television. Okay. What else?
Like superheroes.
Okay, dressing up like superheroes.
Social media.
Social media. There's so many different ways where people are trying to forget God. And these are all activities meant to forget God. And yesterday was the start of Comic-Con. And Comic-Con is another weird place. You know, you have these adults, full-grown adults dressing up in costumes. It's like a second Halloween. And so when Dimitri and I were there, not only was it difficult to find parking, but looking for a place to set up was difficult. When we got there, there was this lady. She told us, "You can't be here. I bought this grass area. I rented it out." And we were looking like you could rent a space. And then, so eventually we had to move to another place, but it was just across the path. And throughout the day, this space that we're trying to set up, it wasn't being occupied. The lady lied to us. So we were a little agitated from that. But not only that, but there were so many people that were in the mode of passion. And yesterday, they were very cheap. You know why? Comic-Con, they give you free stuff. So when they see vendors, they think, "Oh, I'm going to get something free." And when we ask for a donation, they'll give pennies, dollar. I asked this young man, I said, "Do you have $1?" He said, "I have $1." He took out his credit card. So with the credit card, he paid $1 for a book, and I was just so amazed. And so this Comic-Con, you know, we were expecting to do pretty well there, but yeah, you know, at least $2, but $1. And so the results we weren't expecting, because there was a lot of people, but they were interested. And another reason is because we didn't bring our yoga and meditation sign. So they didn't know what we were about. You know, they thought we were selling comic books or books on. And so it was hard getting their attention, but by Srila Prabhupada, Krishna, and the devotees were able to distribute a few books. And Bhakti Dimitri, he got up and started distributing books, you know. And after a few minutes, he came back and he said, "I'm tired." So a lot of people, they were refusing to get books, and they were very cheap yesterday. So we're not going to try that again. It was a good experience, but I think it's good for Harinam. So I'll tell a story. Once there was a man who had to do some business, and he came to a city. And on his stay here, he rented a room, like an apartment. And he started decorating this apartment nicely, right? And he wanted to make it a very comfortable living space. But he forgot he had business to do. And while he was decorating, the landlord kicked him out. And they said, wait, give me 4 more days. And they said, "No, you have to leave." So he had to leave the room, and on top of that, he forgot to do his business. He was busy decorating the apartment. Srila Prabhupada asked, "Is this very intelligent?" No. He has come here to execute some business, but he simply became engaged in decorating the room, the apartment. He wants to stay comfortable, and he forgot what he was supposed to do. Therefore, it is called ignorance. He forgets his real business and too preoccupied in some other business which is temporary. He's only staying here for a few days, but he's thinking, I will stay in this apartment, so why not make it look nice? But the problem is, it's not very important. Similarly, we are contemplating to live in this material world very comfortably. That has become the business all over the world. Everywhere you go, people are spending money. They're working hard, decorating their living room with expensive furniture. Before I moved into the temple, I was working at a retirement home, and it's a very sad place. There was all these elderly people. When they moved in, they would bring their king-size mattresses, their big screen TVs, and closet full of clothes. But what's funny is that they needed help getting on their bed. So they were bringing their big beds, but they couldn't even get on by themselves. And it made me think that even in old age, they're trying to live a comfortable life. But they don't know, and they don't want to admit that death is just around the corner. Srila Prabhupada says old age is a sign that death is approaching. I told this to a person on books, I said, you're pretty old, sir. I told him, shouldn't you start thinking about, what happens at the time of death? Is there life after? And he said, no. And I told him, you don't want to think about it? And he said, no. And I asked him, why not? He said, I'm happy. And I smiled at him and I said, thank you, have a nice day. So many people, they're influenced or they're being illusioned by Krishna's external energy, Maya. And you won't believe it, but in Balboa Park, there was an old man with a motorcycle helmet. I asked him, aren't you too old to be riding a motorcycle? And then he said, no, it makes me feel young. So even in old age, people are trying to make a comfortable living, and they're trying to procrastinate as much as they can. Bhakta, Tyler, and myself, we went to pick up Ramapati at the LAX when he returned. And when I was waiting for Tyler, he was, looking all around for Ramapati Prabhu to see if he had landed. And while I was waiting, there was a car next to me. They were a couple, and they brought back a big, 80-inch screen TV. It was super big. And the whole time I was waiting until Ramapati and Tyler came back, they were trying to fit this big screen TV in their car. They brought it from their vacation, I guess. It was so big it couldn't fit in the trunk. It couldn't fit in the back seat. Even when they put the seats in the front down, they still couldn't put it in. And I was just watching him struggle. He was trying to put it in this angle and this angle, and he couldn't do it. So I started chanting japa. And then I looked to my left. What is this guy doing? He's cutting the corner. He's literally cutting the corners of the TV. So he's destroying it just to fit this TV in his car. Yeah, he was scraping, yeah. And then so I was just thinking, man, how horrible is this? You're so attached to these material things that you don't want to give it up, even when it's against physics, And so you could just imagine how much time is wasted. And what is the real business that we should take care of? Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Sarva Dharman Parityaja Mam Ekam Sharanam Vraja Aham Tvam Sarva Papebhyo Mokshayashyami Masuchaha. That we should give up all these different engagements and just surrender to Krishna. Don't fear. He'll save us from all these sinful reactions. But we don't want to. We want to keep our big screen TV. We want to keep our mattress. We want to keep this relationship, that relationship. And it's very sad because in Las Vegas, you can see the people there, they don't look very happy. But what are they doing in Las Vegas? They're trying to find happiness. And a lot of people, they're driving hours away from their home to go to Las Vegas. And what are they doing? Eating, drinking, sleeping, you know, the four basic instincts that humans and animals share. So Srila Prabhupada, he would say a lot of people, they would speculate. And he always discouraged devotees from saying, I think, I believe, in my opinion. So there's a pastime. On a morning walk near the Bhaktivedanta Manor in England, there's a devotee named Rohini Nandana Das. And this was his first face-to-face exchange with Srila Prabhupada, and he got a chastisement. So Srila Prabhupada and the devotees, they were walking down the narrow, winding country road when they came upon a sign that said, horticultural show. Prabhupada pointed to the sign with his cane and said, what is horticultural? So the devotees stopped walking, but no one said anything until Rohini Nandana spoke from the back of the group. He said, Srila Prabhupada, I think it means fruits and flowers and vegetables growing. So Srila Prabhupada, he turned quickly and looked back at Rohini Nandana. And he said, you think, you do not know, you think? And Rohini Nandana bashfully hung his head and became speechless, while everyone gathered around looking from Rohini Nandana to Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada banged his cane on the ground and repeated, you think? You do not know? So Rohini Nandana Das, he did not take this reprimand lightly. He said he felt that a whole lifetime's pride of I think had been smashed to pieces by Srila Prabhupada. The reason why I bring this up is because we also meet different types of people on book distribution. Scientists, atheists, things like that. And that's the first thing they say is I think. And I told him, sir, that word I think, it means that you're speculating. And he says, no, it's fact. So I didn't want to get into an argument with them. But the reason why we don't use these things because we're given knowledge from the Srimad Bhagavatam. What is this world? How was it created? What is the relationship between God and the living entities? Everything is there. We don't need to manufacture. And it says that we take instructions from Sadhu, Shastra, and Guru. So these are bona fide sources, and we don't listen to someone from the internet, someone who studied knowledge by their own whimsical, you can say, knowledge, because human beings will have 4 defects. Do you know what they are? Make mistakes. Tendency to cheat, we're prone to being illusioned, and we're having perfect senses. Therefore, we don't listen to anyone that's not from these bona fide sampradayas, the Brahma Sampradaya, Sri Sampradaya, Kumara Sampradaya, and Rudra Sampradaya. So these are the 4 bona fide lineages of knowledge. And so, in the purport, I mentioned how Krishna, he saved the son of a Brahmana. Do you guys know this pastime? Yeah? Okay. So there was Krishna and Balarama, they went to school. And it was their time for them to get Brahmin threads, Gayatri, initiation, things like that. So they studied under Sandi Panimuni. And when I was reading this chapter in the Krishna book, it talked about the different arts and sciences that Krishna and Balaram learned. It said that they first learned how to sing, how to compose songs and recognize different tunes, how to put on tilak. They also learned how to draw and read pictographic literature. They learned different types of sewing and embroidery work. They also learned the art of architecture, how to construct residential buildings. They learned to recognize valuable gems by studying their luster and colors. And they also studied herbs and plants to discover how they would act as medicine for different ailments. They learned how to set up dramas for acting. They learned practical psychology. There's more to learn, but I was thinking that's the school, right? To learn all these different things, not just mathematics, how to read and write, and how to start your own business, and how to be a good worker. Krishna and Balarama, they also learned how to decorate with flowers. They learned how to speak and understand the languages of different countries. And not only did they learn the languages of human beings, they also were able to speak with animals and birds. Yeah. And Krishna and Balarama, they learned the art of cutting valuable stones such as diamonds. And they also learned the art of questioning and answering by immediately composing poetry within the mind. They learned the science of the action and reaction of physical combinations and permutations. They also learned the art of psychiatrists, who can understand the psychic movements of another person. So when they were going to school, they were about to graduate. And as students, you give Guru Dakshina to your teacher. And so they asked their teacher, what can we do for you? And so their teacher told them, we lost our son in the ocean. If you can please bring him back. So they went to the ocean and they encountered a demon named Pañcajana. And he had a body like a conch shell. And so after Krishna killed him, he looked in his stomach and he wasn't in his stomach. So then they decided to go to a place called Samyamani, the residence of Yamaraj. They went to Yamaraj and they asked him, please bring this son of our teacher back, the soul of the son. And so when Yamaraj found out who Krishna and Balarama were, he immediately offered his obeisances and he gave the son back to them. And when they brought his son back when they brought the son back to their teacher, spiritual master, was very pleased. And he said, my dear sons, you have done enough for me. I am now completely satisfied. What further want can there be for a man who has disciples like you? My dear boys, you may go home now. These glorious acts of yours will always be renowned all over the world. You are above all blessing, yet it is my duty to bless you. I therefore give you the benediction that whatever you speak will remain as eternally fresh as the instructions of the Vedas. Your teachings will be honored not only within this universe or in this millennium, but in all places and ages, and will remain increasingly new and important. And so due to this benediction from his teacher, Lord Krishna's Bhagavad Gita is ever increasingly fresh and is renowned not only within this universe, but in all other planets and other universes also. And this made me think of a pastime, or Sankirtan. I was at Balboa Park and I stopped this lady. I said, excuse me, I have a special book for you. She stopped. And I pointed to the Bhagavad Gita, and she said, oh, my sister, she's studying Krishna. And I said, what do you mean she's studying Krishna? And she said, her school, they're studying the Bhagavad Gita. They're studying Krishna's words. And I was thinking, 5,000 years ago, Krishna spoke the Bhagavad Gita, but his words are still being repeated. His words are still being analyzed, and they're trying to find out who Krishna is. All of his wonderful instructions in the Bhagavad Gita. I have this new line on book distribution. It's where are you coming from? And they say, I'm from Arizona, Colorado. So I ask them, when people go on vacation, what do people generally do? So they tell me they eat. And I said, what else? I said, they rent hotels. What else? And then they say they take pictures. So I tell them that's all they do. When they go back, they don't bring anything valuable with them or anything that helps them in life. So I tell them, why not bring something important with you? Bring this book back with you. And they understand that it's true. They go to different places. They spend so much time on the road. They spend money on airplanes, on things like that. But they don't bring anything really valuable with them back. So I told him this Bhagavad Gita is a life manual. It helps us to make the right decisions in life. And then so they appreciate that. They take a book, they gave a donation, and then I give them a flower. And they like that. And sometimes I ask people, are you a teacher? And half of the time they are teachers or nurses, and they get surprised by that. So I tell them, if you're a teacher, maybe you could read this verse. So the verse I show them is Raja Vidya, Raja Guyam, Pavitramidam Uttamam, Pratyakshavagam Bhagavam Dharmyam, Susukam Kartumavyayam. And it translates as, this knowledge is the king of education, the most secret of all secrets. It is the purest knowledge, and because it gives direct perception of the self by realization, is the perfection of religion. It is everlasting and is joyfully performed. So I connect education with these teachers. And I tell them you can teach your students how to develop good qualities, tolerance and patience, how to help others, how to be selfless. And they like that, so they take a Bhagavad Gita and they gave a donation. So Srila Prabhupada, he gave us this knowledge. He translated the Srimad Bhagavatam. He explained everything to us. So it's our, you can say, debt to try to repay Srila Prabhupada by distributing his books far and wide. Just like in Las Vegas, in the convention center, Comic-Con, the streets here in Pacific Beach, we should go out and try to distribute the holy names to anyone and everyone, despite whatever family they come from, whatever past they have, and whatever realizations they have. We should give them a book that might change their life for the better, so they can escape this material world which is full of repeated birth and death. Okay, that's all I have. Any questions or comments? Yes, Tai Tai?
Just had a couple thoughts. So going back to what we were reading, I think in the purport, so Krishna as Vishnu will expand to become Brahma, right?
Mm-hmm.
When
if there's no one qualified.
No one qualified. But it says in there that that's very rare, too. So, and then do we say that the head of our Sampradaya is not that type of expansion?
Is a pure, is Krishna himself.
So the head of our Sampradaya is that
devotee?
Vishnu expansion? No, it isn't. So do we know any practical examples of when Vishnu expanded as that type of Brahma? I mean, like, do we know of a time he did that and why? Because I heard if there was no one qualified to take the post, but do you think as that Brahma expanded from Vishnu, they do the same type of job? Or do you think you're, exceptionally fortunate if your Brahma is direct Vishnu expansion? Or is it like, okay, it's like if you cover someone else's service, right? And you're like, you kind of know how to do it, but you're like, I just got to get this done. You sort of get it done to get it done. Mm-hmm. Or are you trying to like really be like, oh, wow, this is my chance to really show these Brahmas how to do this?
Well, there's pastimes of Lord Brahma. He made a few mistakes, like chasing after his own daughter and things like that. But when Krishna takes the pose, he does it perfectly. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes, we said it's a good example. That's good. Jai. When we went up to, last year, me and Bhakti Chris went to Vaisheshika Maharaj's Vyasa Puja. He does the ghee lamp and he does the arti in the morning. I thought that was really, really nice. That was really cool to see. Oh, wow, you're personally, setting a nice example with this. Did you have something, Mukunda? Okay, Jai.
Well, I guess if others know otherwise, correct me if I'm wrong. My understanding with the Brahma, a Vishnu Tattva version of Lord Brahma's post, is that it's not because Krishna needs to set an example or just to do it perfectly, just to show people how it's done, but it's that, again, if people take posts and take births according to their own karma and their own desire, their own free will, then you can't just always, then technically speaking, you can't, it would make sense that at some point there may not be someone who it fits to be in the Brahma position. Because, over the span of eternity, there may just at some point just not be someone who has just the right karma and desire and, and everything to be put in that post. And therefore, Krishna will take it up. He's not going to put someone in a body that they don't deserve according to their karma and then, and their desire. And therefore, it's just, Krishna can do it easily. But you could say, well, why doesn't Krishna always take the post of Brahma? Well, Krishna doesn't take the post of the demigods, one reason. He doesn't need to. He could, but the thing is, all of these posts, all these different bodies in the material world serve purposes for the conditioned souls who have certain desires they need to entertain and fulfill, So, again, a person first comes to the material world because they have certain desires. They take the post of Brahma. So Brahma, it has a purpose. It's not just like, well, somebody's got to take it, I'll just put someone in it. It actually helps those particular souls who are then put in that body, in that post. Does that make sense? Maybe it doesn't make sense, but if that, so anyway, that was just one thing. Also, you mentioned and thank you for speaking. You mentioned the pastime of, in the purport, it was actually mentioning the pastime where Krishna and Arjuna went and they brought back the sons of a brahmana, not Sandipani Muni's dead son, but this was the one where there's a king. And then this brahmana's sons died, and so the person goes to the king, he's complaining, and Arjuna says, well, I'll protect your sons, and or I'll bring your sons back, or whatever, and or I'll protect your sons, and if I fail, then I'll enter into fire, I'll kill and so to protect Krishna's, to protect his devotee, then Krishna goes and brings them back with Arjuna. Of course, it's a parallel with that story also, but
yeah. I was thinking about that too.
Right.
But I wasn't familiar with that one.
Yeah, well, yeah, this one's also in Krishna book, but it's toward the end of it, but yeah.
Thank you. And I read also that to take the post of Brahma, you need to live 100 sinless lives.
Yeah, that's recent.
Yeah.
Before right when we come from spiritual world to play out this desire, that we have to live those 100 lives and then become Brahma. Because that was pretty interesting. Where it's like you just show up here and they're like, "Here's the biggest post," and all of Okay.
No, as far as I saw, the context of that was that, of course, yeah, it's that the first birth a person takes in the material world is Lord Brahma, because of the first desire they have in the spiritual world is like a gross desire. It's a very small one. So like the least material body you can have, but enter the material world is Lord Brahma. So when you get the first tiny spark of non-Krishna consciousness, then you qualify to enter the material world, but the least material body would be Brahma.
That has the most duties, doesn't it? That post?
Yeah, but you're also the most qualified. You're just fresh out of the spiritual world.
You're untainted.
Yeah, and so the point is that from that post you can go straight back to the material world, but the nature to the spiritual world. But the nature of the material world is that once you're in, you tend to just fall lower. Not that you have to. Not that everybody does. Once they appear as Brahma, they could just go straight back, never appear in the material world again. But generally, you enter the material world, you have a certain momentum, and you just kind of go further down. But your question that, okay, well, yeah, it said that, what it said some verses ago in this chapter was that one can become qualified for the position of Lord Brahma after taking, and it even said at least 100, completing at least 100 perfect lives or births, perfectly following all the Varnashram principles. So yes, so once you're down, to get back to that place, where you're, qualified to be in that post, it's going to take a lot of purification before you can be in that post. When you come straight out of the spiritual world, it's not so surprising. Everyone in the spiritual world is qualified to do anything. But so it makes sense that, okay, they can be Brahma. But yeah, once you're down, then it's going to take a lot to get you back up to the position where you're qualified to have a post like that, to have a body made of, intelligence and such. So that's my understanding.
Because it blows my mind in the sense of I've seen that this line of ants that was out on the patio, and there's all these ants, and they're all jivas, right? And then that's just one little part of San Diego, in the world. Think of how many ants there are. And then there's all these they're all jivas.
Probiotic in your gut, everything.
So they were all that post. So I always wanted unlimited pores, or, unlimited universes to come to the point. It's yeah, right. And you just look at that. There's this many jivas, and we've all been the head of an entire universe. So there's so many universes because there's so many jivas, and this is just one universe. And you see how many jivas there are? it's hard to get out of here, you know?
Thank you for the nice class, Govardhana, bro, and the nice pastimes in Vegas. I had a couple questions on the point. In the text, it talked about this thing, because he entered into the dual egg of the universe and the time of creation. I've heard that before, but I want to know if you could just, if you know more about that. I have another question following up that. It's in the text, 44, in the translation.
44?
Yeah.
I guess you did read three verses.
Yeah, I'm not too sure about that.
You mentioned this pastime with Krishna and Balarama, and they're going to go save this Brahmana's son. And by doing that, they killed this first demon, right? It seems to me that, I'm not speculating or anything, I'm just observing, but when Krishna takes a life of, a demon or something, they say the soul is liberated.
Mm-hmm.
So is it that there's two ways to get to Godhead? Is either, you're like a devotee, or you're just like, I'm just going to be a demon until Krishna comes down and, he could just take my life. And there you go, he just... Yeah, right. Because I was hearing this class yesterday, and like, for instance, like with Arjun and Bhishma Dev. Bhishma Dev was like, he said, he's the son of Vyasa-Dev, and he sees Krishna, but he still doesn't, listen to him. He wants to fight. He's still very arrogant. So until it's on the battlefield and he's like full of arrows, this is when he realizes that Krishna is the supreme and he fully surrenders.
So I heard differently. Srila Prabhupada says that Bhishma Dev is actually one of the 12 Mahajans, one of the 12 authorities. And he has this rasa with Krishna. He sees Krishna as a supreme personality of Godhead, but as when Krishna was coming at him, holding the chariot wheel, it was described that that's the form that he likes. Krishna sweating and picking up the weapon, chasing. So yeah, but he always knew that Krishna was the supreme personality of Godhead, but just due to, he made a vow to protect whoever was on the throne of Hastinapur. It was like a vow. So even when he knew he was on the wrong party, he felt had like a duty or an obligation because they took care of him. Right? Yeah.
Yeah. You were saying that in this Kali Yuga is when we tend to forget God more.
Mm-hmm.
So it got me thinking that a devotee knows that about self-realization, and let's say a devotee knows about self-realization, but also thinks of God every day, constantly on these thoughts, but still cannot get rid of the material desires that it has. So, and what advice can you give a devotee? A devotee is chanting, is doing everything, but for some reason, could be Maya, most likely Maya, but they are aware of that. They are aware of their own Maya. So what advice can you give?
So Srila Prabhupada, he would always emphasize that the holy name of Krishna is very strong. It can purify that desire, but at the same time, it's also our sincerity. How much do we want to give up this attachment or whatever impediment that's preventing us from advancing in Krishna consciousness? Yeah.
So they keep trying to purify themselves, but they just can't shake it off or can't just put it on the side. So what about if they say, okay, I'm not practicing 100% and I should and I want to, or maybe it's a denial because they say want to, but they don't. Mm-hmm. But they're kind of like thinking, oh, perhaps I just kind of give up and give my Krishna consciousness, and maybe I'm not worthy of keep practicing.
So Krishna says that whatever endeavor we bring that with us in our next life. So even if we don't become perfect in this life, we continue in our next life, which actually has a lot of value. People that don't even know Krishna consciousness, they may lose the human form of life in their next birth. So even if we can't, say, purify or get rid of these, anarthas, we can just keep trying and trying. I mean, I don't know. Does anyone else have any?
Sincerity.
Yeah.
Krishna knows you're sincere. He'll help reciprocate with that sincerity. And I think that's, aren't we supposed to feel fallen? Like, we all feel, I'm unworthy, and, like so many poems of our acharyas are saying, I wasted my time, why do I have all these thoughts? So I think being sincere in our desire to want Krishna, because being with Krishna means we're not troubled by those things. So if we're troubled by those things, we should be sincere in our crying out to Krishna.
I think Balaram Prabhu, he's probably had this question asked to him a lot of times.
I don't know. I was hearing a lecture by Srila Prabhupada recently, and he was saying that, which I've mentioned here somewhat recently, I repeated here that, he's saying, we have tried so many ways to be happy. He said the living entities tried so many ways to be happy, and they will try so many ways besides Krishna, right? Anything but Krishna. And you see that's the general mode, that's the general tendency. People are suffering terribly, and then devotees try to say, hey, well, why don't you worship Krishna? Why don't you serve Krishna? No, I'm not. I'm going to try other ways. There's so many other ways, right? So then you say, okay, well, how does this point relate to a devotee's life? Well, it relates to a devotee's life because we have also tried many things. And although we are trying to surrender to Krishna, although we are trying to focus our attention on Krishna, due to our conditioning, we may not be fully convinced that I could be happy just surrendering to Krishna. In other words, we may have difficulty just doing that. So our conditioning pretty much doesn't allow us to fully take to Krishna consciousness, which is a difficult state to be in. Although we're convinced to a degree, so therefore we try. But because we have the materially conditioned mind and senses, then the mind and senses are always trying to revert back to their old ways. So a devotee has to constantly strive to not fall back into that into their old ways, and try to strive to be Krishna conscious more and more and more. And then someone say, well, it's just too difficult. Like, this is just too much. Like, all right, like, my mind and senses are saying go this way, but you guys are saying to go this way towards Krishna, but I just can't do it. It's just too much. Well, that's why we have this important principle of a devotee association, or company, keeping the company of devotees. Because the company of devotees, that's what brings Krishna consciousness to life. We may be trying on our own, having kirtan by ourselves, or having Bhagavatam class by ourselves, or having deity worship by ourselves, or whatever. And we can make progress like that. But the association of the devotees, they really bring it to life. They enhance the processes of devotional service. So the more we could be in the company of devotees, and the more advanced devotees, the better, then it really enhances it. Like His Holiness Giraj Swami, he was saying one time that he was chanting japa, and there was two of his godbrothers who he was chanting, and then one of the godbrother came in, he sat down, he started chanting. So then my spiritual master said that he felt like enhanced his concentration of the nectar of the holy name. And then another godbrother came in, and he also felt like a boost, from these personalities. And that's our experience. I mean, that's our experience. I remember one time I traveled with Ananda Tirtha Maharaj. I think I only did it once, actually. But it was very nice. It was very good. I mean, we just drove to the Bay Area. It was a weekend trip, and it was simple. We just drove there, and then we read some Chaitanya Charitamrita. He gave a class. He led some kirtan. We did that at a few different locations, and we drove back. But because I was in his association, I felt a boost in my Krishna consciousness. Although, I could have just did the same things myself. I could have read Chaitanya Charitamrita myself and went and gave a talk myself and led a kirtan myself. But because I was with him, I felt a boost. So that's the power of association. So, yeah, just understanding the principle that we have tried so many things, and therefore our mind and senses are materially conditioned. They're always trying to revert until we get to a more steady stage. But therefore we always have to strive. And then in the company of devotees, it really helps. It really helps. So, of course, people give seminars about this question. So if you want to any further, you could go listen to some seminars. Because we don't have time to give a seminar. And a seminar means like a few days, Like, there's we give like 20 talks on this. So... But on a serious note, there are many nice seminars about these different points that devotees put together. So we could take advantage.
Okay.
Less important, but so you were asking about the third verse where it's saying that the sun enters the dull egg. Is that what was your question, though? Well, okay, so I may have misunderstood your question. Oh, no. So no, in this case it was just that, okay, so the first verse he read was just talking about this place, Loka Mountain, and how it divides the place that where the sun is seen and where the sun actually, gives light, and the part of the universe that doesn't get any light from the sun because it's blocked. And so that's the first, and then the second verse then, so the first verse mentions the sun, then the second verse mentions, and that sun is in the very middle of the universe. The universe is 4 billion miles wide, and right in the middle, exactly, which is quite a significant point, which could, people would certainly, you could certainly, talk about that a bit, but what it's saying is that the sun is in the middle of the universe. There's one sun for the entire universe, and it's right in the middle. And then, so then the third verse was just saying that that sun, then again, the third verse is saying, okay, the sun has these few different names. One of the names is Vairaja, or whatever it was, because it's the first. When Brahma creates whenever universe is created, manifested, Brahma is the one who kind of fills it with the bodies, which then living entities take up. And so the very first one, it's dull, meaning there's no life, there's no light, because the sun hasn't entered it. So and the universe is described as egg-shaped. It's not quite a sphere; it's like egg-shaped, and also so there's this egg-shaped universe, and it's dull. There's no life until the first inhabits it with the sun. And then from there, the other planetary systems, there's so many other bodies, everything like that. And so somehow Vairaja has to refer to that it's the first, And then after that, they gave him other names, that even the sun. Now this part I was confused with. It said that the sun, one of his names is Hiranyagarbha, because his body is created by Brahma, whose name is Hiranyagarbha. But I don't really know why that makes sense, because it seems like usually the system is if your dad's name is Hiranyagarbha, your name is Hiranyagarbhya, or Hiranyagarbha, or Hiranyagarb, Bana, or something like that. So, but anyway, somehow they have the same name because one of them created the other. But that's all it was saying, as far as I understand.
Thank you, Mukunda. Does that mean that you guys were talking about, I know we're going past time, that they say like nobody's qualified, a Brahman is not qualified to take up the position, so Krishna does that? Does the jiva that appears in that time when Krishna takes up that position, is that like auspicious for them in that time? It's like, oh, okay, like I'm not just like, out of any of the jiva, this is like Krishna Brahmana.
You can.
as far as I haven't read anything, I was wondering about that too, actually, when you were talking about it, because I was thinking, Krishna appears as Brahma. It doesn't seem to say that he does anything special, because it seems that he still wants the universe to go on as it does, because it goes on for a purpose. So it seems like even if Krishna takes the post, he takes it to play out the world as if any other Brahma would do. Because if there was some benefit, he could always do that. But it seems like he makes this material world, this universe, for a purpose, and therefore, even when he appears as Brahma, he's going to let it go on as if he's a regular old material Jiva Brahma. That's what I was guessing, but I never read that. That was speculative.
Okay. Thank you for all your contribution. Is there anyone online on Zoom before we end the class?
Yes, Govardhan Prabhu?
Yes, Hare Krishna, Vijay Krishna.
No, I'm not alone. Namaja is here and Dhanavari, Mataji. So should I go first? Should I wait?
Maybe you can ask. Yeah, you can go first.
Yes, Govardhan Prabhu, Dhanavat Pranams. My question is, well, when a living entity is already purified beyond the jurisdiction of the material modes of nature, 4 symptoms become visible: less eating, less sleeping, less mating, and less defending. So based on this, my question is, apart from these 4 visible symptoms, do you know any other symptom which characterizes the stage of complete purification?
So Srila Prabhupada would always explain that you're making advancement if you're no longer interested in material things. And so that means, are we developing our love for Krishna? Are we taking Krishna consciousness seriously? Are we giving up all these other bad habits and things like that? But yeah, these are all good signs. Eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, we should try to get rid of these and try to advance further in spiritual life. I hope that helps Vijay Krishna.
So you feel that your love for Krishna increases?
Yes, you should. We should.
And the symptom is that you become more obedient and not the opposite, not disobedient.
Yeah, that's the reason why we came here in the first place. We didn't want Krishna to be enjoying. We wanted ourselves to be enjoying. And so, yeah, we're part of Krishna. So when we serve Krishna, it actually makes the living entity happy.
Yes, Prabhu. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Is there any other questions or comments from Zoom?
Thank you so much for the nice class, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna. Okay. I think she's just tuning in, but she may not ask a question.
Hi, Donavari. We miss you. Haribo.
That was Bhakti Tyler. Okay. Thank you for your time and attention and all your nice contributions and questions. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.